I remember when I first left engineering to become a teacher, I knew the feeling it felt when you told somebody you're an engineer and how they look at you, right? I knew how they looked at you. I know the surprise on their face as they emoted. And then when I became a teacher, I saw a different emote, right? And the emote was like, "Oh, okay."
This is High Tech High Unboxed. I'm Alec Patton, and that was the voice of Ashanti Branch. You're hearing his voice because today it is our great pleasure to share Ashanti's conversation with physics teacher Dr. Tim Daponte from Ashanti's podcast, Taking Off the Mask. Here's how Ashanti describes his show. Taking Off the Mask is an experience of getting real, providing men a space to have conversations about life, challenges, joys, heartbreak, dreams, failures, and whatever is ready to be revealed. The podcast is structured around the mask, a social emotional learning tool that Ashanti created. Ashanti and his guests discuss what is in the front of their masks, the things we gladly share with the world, and the back of their masks, the things we don't normally share or talk about. Here's the episode. Enjoy.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on the bed of nails. Brittany's going to put the 40-pound block of concrete on my chest. Lauren is going to take the 12-pound sledgehammer, break the concrete block into millions of pieces, and according to the law of conservation of energy, I should be okay. But
we should talk you out of it. No.
Oh, he has a helmet now.
okay.
Oh, yes, helmet. Metal nails.
Okay, but here, come on. Let's go.
Oh my gosh. She's having a good time.
Aren't you supposed to have the goggles on your head?
Yeah, I mean, goggles.
Oh my goodness. John, give him a round of applause.
Hello and welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. My name is Ashanti Branch, and I'm really glad you've joined us. Today's guest is Dr. Tim Daponte. Dr. Tim and I go way back. You know, when I first became a teacher, I learned about this opportunity to travel as a teacher. You know, when I left engineering, I thought I'm never going to be able to travel again. I ain't got no money. How am I going to save anything? Because I'm barely making anything to survive. Like, there was a lot of stuff happening internally as I was making this decision to follow my heart. But a teacher told me, look, Ashanti, after you teach for 5 years, you can apply for a Fulbright, and it's an exchange program. So a teacher from that country will come here and you will go there. And I'm like, all right, okay, I can get some travel in. And so I applied to travel to either India or Mexico. Now, I got accepted to both. With India, I needed only English language. With Mexico, I needed Spanish language, and I had enough Spanish language to qualify for Mexico. The challenge with Mexico is that Mexico was a 1-year program. I couldn't be away from Ever Forward for 1 year. Now, India was 7 months. So it allowed me to come back to Ever Forward and still complete our 24-hour relay challenge, our college tour, and be there for graduation. So even though there was some frustrated students when I told them I was leaving for 7 months, I knew that I was going to be back in time to make sure that we completed all of our big events, and all of our big events usually in the spring. Tim was one of the teachers one of the 8 educators who were accepted to India. And we met up 3 times in India. And we stayed in touch over the last 15 years. That was 2007 when I got to go to India to teach. I still have connections with students who I taught in India, and still have connections with Dr. Daponte. He's an educator. He's a father. And he's a person who really understands that there's more to teaching than just academics. And in this conversation, as you know, we talked to some educators recently, several of them. We're getting their understanding and more about how teaching profession, how teachers and educators, how we have to navigate our own masks as well. And so this conversation actually gets a little academic. I mean, we start talking about law of conservation of energy and the bed of nails. So if you've never seen or heard about a bed of nails, he's going to tell you all about it. We talk about some other stuff some other titles that he named. I'm not even going to try and name all those things. But what we talk about is how connecting with students is so important. And I guess I was already kind of getting excited about this episode, but um, this episode is also important because we're recording it the week of what took place in Uvalde in Texas, and Tim is actually he was recording from Texas, and so we spent some time there as well. And so as we touch on these topics in this conversation, uh, I just want to invite each of you as you're out there, if you're parents, if you're educators, if you're community people, um, to please share this episode with somebody. Please recommend a teacher that we should talk to in this work. Please nominate somebody who you think would be a good guest for us to have a conversation with about their own masks as well. Whether they're an educator, teacher, administrator, maybe they're a student, maybe there's a teenager out there that you know that we should connect with. You help us to know who you want to be hearing from, and your ability to connect us with those people are going to be powerful because you may already know them. If you're a first time guest and you have never listened to the episode, we're going to talk about the front and the back of our masks. We're going to talk about the Million Mask Movement is a campaign that we created to help people build connection. The front of the mask, which are the things that we gladly let the world see, and the back of the mask, the things that we don't usually talk about or let people see. I'm really thankful for Tim exploring and sharing that it was kind of challenging for him as a 66-year-old man to think about what's happening behind the scenes. And I'm really thankful for him sharing it with us. And so hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for being a part of this movement. Please like, share, subscribe. And if you can write us a review, we really appreciate it. It's going to help our podcast get in front of more people. And we thank you for that. Please enjoy today's episode with Dr. Tim Daponte. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Tim Daponte, it is so good to see you. Welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast.
Hi, Ashanti. It's always good to see you.
Oh, man. Well, Tim, you know what? We're going to kind of get into how we know each other, but will you introduce yourself to folks so they will know who you are? And then I'm really excited for us to get into this conversation.
I'm Tim Daponte. I live in Houston, Texas. I retired from the public schools in Houston after 32 years of teaching. And from there, I taught 6.5 years at the Harris County Juvenile Detention Center. And last year, because of cutbacks in the county education budget, I am now teaching at Incarnate Word Academy. It's a Catholic all-girls school here in Houston, Texas. So I went from the convicts to the convent.
Wow. And I imagine we're going to jump into that experience
Sure.
in the juvenile detention because we've been doing some work there this year. Thank you, man. And listen, look, Tim and I, we've known each other and I've not seen you since 2000 and like face to face, since 2008, right? That's after when we left
Correct.
India, right?
Right.
So, how about you want to tell them how we met?
Ashanti and I were both in the Fulbright Teacher Exchange Program. He was based in Chennai, correct?
Yeah.
There were 8 American teachers who exchanged positions with an Indian teacher in the same discipline. And I was in New Delhi with my 10-year-old son, and Ashanti was basically a rock star in Chennai. Everyone loved Ashanti immediately, including my 10-year-old son, who still thinks Ashanti is the coolest man who ever lived.
Oh man, your son was amazing. It was so. I think only 2 or 3 of the folks had brought their families or who had families. I didn't have a family, so
right.
And it was so great to I was like, you brought your whole family. It was just amazing to people who did that experience to come there all the way across the world, bring their family, and it was just I was hard enough for me moving myself, you know.
Well, I was the others, Paul and Pat, who brought their families. They also brought their wives as well as their children with them, but I was a single parent with Matthew, and it's difficult being a single parent no matter what the circumstances are, and being a single parent in a developing country where you cannot always drink the water was even more challenging, watching after Matthew and making sure that his welfare and health and safety were taken care of also. So it gave me an even greater appreciation for my mother, who basically raised 7 children by herself. Just
Mm.
being a single parent for a semester was quite an experience.
Man, I was so, and it was all every time we got together. I think we got together definitely 2 times, maybe three. I know
Yeah,
once in Manipal and then once in Delhi for the kickoff, and
right.
so it
And
was just so.
another time after that.
That's right. I think that was
Yeah,
the closing
yeah,
ceremony. Yeah, and just a beautiful experience of connection and the fact that we still are connected 15 years later. We haven't seen each other. We stay in touch by emails and talks, and
sure.
so I'm so excited to have you here on the show. Um, and I know you mentioned this is your first podcast. So first of all, thank you for being willing to have your first podcast experience with me. And this conversation is not an interview, so it's an opportunity for us to just to connect and talk about these masks, right? I think even when I had started the podcast, when I came to India, 2007, I had just started the Ever Forward Club, like
Right.
4 years before that, 2004. So it was a brand new organization, and I was just trying to figure it out. And I was like, leaving it was really hard. So what I felt like I was leaving behind was I was leaving behind the Ever Forward Club, and having to tell those students, "Hey, I'm not going to be here next year." Like it, it, it was a, I didn't expect the emotions that were going to come. I mean, and it was almost like, how do I? It felt heartfelt, but it also felt like, oh, I didn't expect them to take it so hard, And so leaving them felt like leaving family behind. And so,
Hmm.
so I was like, I could have brought them all of you. Come on, we gonna all go to India for a
Right.
semester abroad. That would have been a great, wild. I definitely am not prepared for that kind of experience yet.
Right. I
But
left
yeah,
my wife and younger son. George has special needs back in Houston for that time too. So yeah,
man,
I understand what it was like leaving family.
yeah. Well, listen, I'm so glad that we get to jump into this conversation. You as an educator, and we've actually been interviewing several like not even planned. Like we talked about interviewing more educators, but just recently we've been interviewing a lot more educators. And I think that what we are seeing in our schools and what we know post pandemic is, what I believe and what I see, um, is that our kids are in such a deep need for emotional and social supports, right? And I think that
Yeah,
uh, schools get stuck into the academic, which is absolutely important, and sometimes at the expense of the social and emotional well-being of students. And I think, I think as you probably experience now at this school you're at now compared to where you were before, like if a kid is not emotionally present, th- their academics are probably going to have some effect. It's going to affect their academics in some way.
of course, yes.
And so this mask, you and I get to talk about our masks first, and maybe, as we kind of like explore, how they show up in our own lives, then maybe we can, talk about education. Because I think right now, in more than ever, and I didn't make the connection. Actually, when we signed you, when we scheduled this, what we're dealing with in the world right now hadn't happened, right? So, what's happening in our, just giving everybody a timeline. This is May 26th, and we just had a sometimes even hard to talk about it. So I feel like sometimes it's even awkward to even name it. Like I feel my
Yeah,
emotions actually rising. Um, s-
I feel the same way.
yeah,
You're talking about the massacre in Uvalde,
yeah,
and massacre is a very powerful word, but I don't think there's any word that really can justify the horror of this. Uh, I live in Texas, and you I like Houston, uh, but it is harder to get a 6-pack of beer than it is a AR-15. I was an Army medic, and I have seen what an M16 can do to a human being. Uh, and a lot of people don't really appreciate that. Uh, at 21, if you're 18, you cannot rent a car,
Yeah.
but you can buy a M16 or automatic rifle. There's a disconnect there.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't rent a car. Can't even have a drink
Right,
without with all the
right,
things that they make you hold up to, and then they.
right.
So today is a real day, and I think thank you for being here, and I'm super excited about this conversation. So our guests get to decide who goes first. So you either you go first, or you want me to go first. And sharing the mask, and then after we'll just share the mask and kind of talk about any pieces that stand out for you, and then the conversation will kind of go wherever it's meant to go.
Uh, I'll, I'll, I'll lead off.
Okay.
It's the leadoff batter in baseball occasionally because I was not a power hitter. Uh,
Awesome.
my mask.
So how about do this? Show the front, just like maybe fold it back so you can just show the
Sorry.
front. No, it's okay. It's just like we'll leave the suspense to them
Oh,
seeing the
okay.
back later. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. There
Uh,
you go.
can you see that, Ashanti?
I can.
Okay. I'm not much of an artist, and it shows a happy guy with a baseball hat. Um, it says, I'm happy, I'm a teacher, I'm educated. That's 3 words that people might use to describe me. Uh, the back, I really had to think about this. It took me a
Mm,
long time to think of 3 words that I don't want or people don't necessarily see. Uh,
mm,
insecure,
yeah,
a lot of family issues, brothers, sisters, well, mostly brothers. And
mm,
my father was very physically abusive. So I've had, some trauma in my life, a lot. So,
mm.
and I'm willing to talk about that. Um, it took me years of therapy to get over a lot of this, but that's something that we have to deal with each day.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think you helped me figure where I was gonna go on the back of mine as well. Like and I'm gonna jump into that too. And I'll show you the front. This is the front of my mask. I wrote. This is what I drew. I don't know what that is right now.
Energetic, serious, and caring. I
Yeah.
would agree with that.
And ironically, the E and the C. This it was not planned. I was literally, but there's an E here, a E, and then there's a
Oh,
C right there. That's
okay,
funny.
yes, it's kind of like Picasso.
All right,
Uh,
don't get me started. I'm gonna have to save this for somebody to buy later.
okay,
Um, and then the back, energetic, serious, caring. I think when I thought about like lately I've been really thinking about the caring part, right? Like I am really my heart is open, and like I care a lot about not only the state of education, the state of schools, the state of young men who are emotionally overloaded with life. But I put caring last, and I think that sometimes because I get so because I feel it so deeply, I almost push caring back to behind because I think I would just be I may be crying all the time, like just what I am feel, and I have to get to work, and I got to do stuff, and I got things to do, and I got business, I got an organization to run, and I almost have to feel like sometimes I have to compartmentalize who I am, like the caring part of myself. Okay, when I get home at night, then I can think about and look on the news and watch some stuff and just feel. But during the day, I'm like, hey, I got stuff to do. I got an organization to run, and I'm almost like the caring part of myself. I'll keep it behind sometimes. Anyway, and that's interesting because I'm gonna show you what I put on the back because this is what the things I don't normally show.
so,
Uh,
oh yeah,
sad, worry, and family drama. and and yeah, and I think that I might have a father growing up, but my mom got married when I was like 11 or 12, and there was a lot of drama with the man she married. In my life, it turned into kind of a really horrible season of my life, I would say. Um, but sad and worry is one that is kind of really pressing into me today. Like I'm not talking about it. I am trying to figure out how to talk about it. I I want to talk about it, and so I think those are things I'm carrying right now a lot. I'm carrying the sadness and the worry for kids all over the country who are and parents who are having to send off their little kids, and the worry that they're having in their minds as they drive off to work and knowing that they just hope. You're right. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just you wonder how many people are at work not even fully present because they're just worried if their kids are okay at their. It's like how much collective energetic pull does that pull on our people in this country and then people all over the
Hmm.
world, but definitely people here who have seen and experienced, and people right there in that city and the cities around. So those are the things that are really present for me right now. Yeah. I guess one of maybe this is not an interview, so I guess
Oh, okay.
no. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is more. I mean, there'll be maybe you have a question, I have a question, but I think about this a lot when I think about education and teachers and schools and how we do this activity with schools all over, right? We go into schools, we have students make a mask, we kind of mix up the masks, and we invite some students to come up and read some masks. And what we often find, even at private schools, public schools, charter schools, juvenile detention schools, like I think people are sometimes shocked that people around them are going through real stuff because people get really good at putting on that emotional mask.
Yeah. I put down insecure on mine. And I'm a teacher. I have two masters, I have my doctorate, but I always felt that, my father would always call me stupid, stupid. The only good piece of advice he ever gave me was, you don't have much of a brain, so you might as well learn how to use your hands. So I took a lot of
Mm,
shop classes in high school, which has served me well in that respect. But um, I always felt that even though I have all these, diplomas on the wall, that uh, I, for some reason, am just faking it. And someday someone's going to pull back the curtain and, hey, we looked at your dissertation and, uh, it's all wrong or whatever. Uh, I dated a woman for a while. She was at Barnard College. She had graduated from Barnard College in New York, which is attached to Columbia University. And the line she would say, when we were with her Ivy League friends, would be, he's not Ivy League material, whatever that
mm,
means. Well, you know, very, it was a way to put you in your place and always being
mm,
somewhat the outsider. Um, I've known people who've gone to very, top universities in the country. Um, I mean, my wife is a Harvard graduate, um, and, supremely intelligent, but there's always that academic and intellectual insecurity, I think, and that's traced back to growing up, the family issues, and the trauma too.
yeah.
Um, and I don't think we ever, we might get over that, but we'll never forget it.
Mm. Get over it versus forgetting it. you know, two things came up as you said that, and I want to let me write this. Get over it. Uh, when you talked about your father's that quote he said to you, "You don't have much of a brain. You better learn to use your hands." Do, did you ever have a chance later to talk to your father about?
No,
No, no.
no, he deserted the family, um, but no, um, no, uh, nor did I ever want to.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I always thought, well, geez, I graduated from high school, and it wasn't until I was in the Army that I took some college courses just because I had some free time at the University of Maryland's branch overseas in Europe. And I did well, and I had the GI Bill, so I figured, okay, I'll go to college for free, which was great. And that validation, I think the reason I even pursued a doctorate was because I needed that validation. Also, teaching, if you had a doctorate, you made a substantial amount of money more than if you just had your master's. So it was economically advantageous to me. But it's that validation. Okay, I had one woman ask me once, she got into an argument. She said, "What do you think you are, some sort of PhD?" I didn't know what to say, Ashanti. So I went to the other room. I looked at the wall. There was a diploma on it. And it said, according to the University of Houston, I was some sort of PhD. I pointed that out to her. I also pointed out that she wasn't. And last time I saw her, believe it or not.
Safe to say that was a close. Some writing on the wall, huh? Literally,
Literally and figuratively,
and
right?
figuratively.
Right.
Yeah,
But
man.
I think I think that insecurity is always going to be there too.
Yeah,
But as both you and I are Fulbrights,
yeah,
and that was kind of like the punctuation on the. Okay, you want to call me stupid? Well, I have a Fulbright and you don't. Okay,
yeah.
um, but
And I wonder, even and so, thank you for sharing that story, because I think that what we think about is, it seems like, for that, even that woman who said that thing, and for your their dad, like, if people will always try and question our abilities or knowledge, and I think I've experienced that, and I think one of the things I said, like, okay, how can I work? Like, normally I put on my in front of my mask, I'm a hard worker, because I believe I am, and I think I always feel like I'm always trying to, like, prove that I am worthy. I think, when I think about that insecure, and I think about that piece, that word, which resonates with me as well. I think about, like, if I work hard enough, then it's gonna show it, right? And I wonder for myself, as I hear you talk about this, and I'm wondering how often I have, like, been trying to prove it to myself sometimes, right? Like, constantly trying to, like, Ashanti, like, yes you are an engineer, but you're a teacher and you love teaching. You don't need to prove to people that you are an engineer who became a teacher, right? You don't have to all like I remember when I first left engineering to become a teacher, I knew the feeling it felt when you told somebody you're an engineer, and how they look at you, right? I knew how they looked at you. I know the surprise on their face as they emoted. And then when I became a teacher, I saw a different emote, right? And the emote was like, "Oh, okay." And so then I realized, oh, if I need to, like, qualify the fact that I'm a teacher with me being an engineer. So I would always be like,
right,
well, I used to work in engineering and now I'm a teacher, right? And I felt like I was doing it kind of like for a self-preservation, almost an ego piece, right? Because I knew what that felt like to have somebody, like, be like, oh, nice to you, teacher. Like, oh, good job, right? And I never felt that as an engineer. I felt like a whole different kind of vibe. And I think so. It's interesting how, how often people in the world, and as a teacher, as I see students who are trying to, like, go after things that they don't really want, but they feel like they have to because they need to improve or impress or make somebody else happy. I wonder how often people, I mean, I know it happens a lot. I don't know the percentage of that, but how often people get stuck, right? Because what if somebody got into a career that they didn't really want to be in, and how long do you stay before you like this is not enough, or do you just stay there for the rest of your life? You know?
I don't know how many people, lawyers, whatever, uh, are just miserable in their career and they make buckets of money, but they dread going to work. And people say, well, you have all these degrees, you have all this qualifications, Tim, why are you still in the classroom? Well, I enjoy it and I'm really good at it too. And I think that's what keeps me in the classroom and not going up to the boardroom. Uh, so, teachers, my wife worked in investment banking for bajillion years, and we used to go to some professional functions and people, oh, Tim, what do you do? Well, I'm a teacher. I, teach at, you know, in the Houston School District. Oh, that's nice, and walk away uh, because I couldn't advance their career. I always told my wife, somewhat semi seriously, that whenever we go to any of her business functions, I should always have my W-2 form stapled to my lapel. And, so, but, Jenny, my wife, Virginia, that didn't make any difference to her how much money I made. I tell the story that um, when we first met, I had a Ford pickup truck and the ignition switch was broken. So instead of going to AutoZone, I'm not plugging AutoZone, um, but that's where I do all my holiday shopping. Uh, to get an ignition switch, I had a screwdriver and I just popped it, and that was it. And I picked Jenny up and I started the truck, and she said, uh, why don't you have an ignition switch? And I said, I'm a teacher. And that was okay with her, starting the truck with the ignition switch. Yeah. Her
I mean, that
father,
go
her,
keep
her,
going, keep going.
okay, her father, we had been going together for close to a year, and I met him, and, he was in the pickup truck. I started it, and I said, this is June or July in Houston. I said, time to turn on the air conditioning. He didn't blink. He just rolled down the window because he knew that my air conditioning system.
Did not exist, probably.
Yeah, well, open up both windows, drive fast.
That's really awesome, and I'm really, and I think in comparison to the person who said you're not a PhD, are you? I think to know that the person who accepted you, the person where you found connection and partnership, was a person who was like, "Hey, sounds good, it works,"
Yeah,
and I think that is what people I think are looking for. I think young people. I mean, this is imagine now on the way young people get validation is on these devices, and I love my phone, but I always tell young people about how often how I never had to worry about impressing somebody out outside of my. If I wanted to impress them, they had to be at my school or somebody I was going to see, not like people who I'm never going to know who are, you know, mean boy 244. Like I'm not going to have to impress some fictitious person with an emoji as their image. I and that's a lot of work to be trying to impress people that you don't even know or see or think they're real, right? It's hard enough to try and if you wanted to impress people where you like where you are, where I physically am, you know. And I think sometimes young people today, I think they're when they get sucked into these devices, I think sometimes this idea of like I want to impress somebody outside of myself, right? And I think how amazing it could be for young people to just say, you know, I'm going to be happy myself, right? I'm going to just be myself and I'm going to first start there. And then whoever is willing to accept me will accept me. Whoever's willing to accept me will see me and value me. And I think that's so important. And I think what I'm seeing today more than ever is so many students and young people are not comfortable in their own skin. Like they're always like, who am I having to be around these people? And I saw you. I saw the other day. You sent me a picture. I think I saw of you allowing a student with a
Oh,
sledgehammer to break
that's
a. Yeah,
the
how
bed
about
of
you tell?
bed of nails trick. I've been doing that for it's the last magic trick of the year, and I was teaching at a high school in Houston, John H. Reagan High School, and the woodshop kids needed a final project, and so two of the guys made me a bed of nails, 2,088 nails, and it demonstrates the law of conservation of energy. And I don't think there's enough time for us to go over this. Anyway, I get on the bed of nails, put a 40-pound block of concrete cinder block on my chest, and the student takes a sledgehammer and breaks it. Well, what it does is the energy from the sledgehammer breaks the concrete block. My weight is distributed on over 2,000 points, and with the population I have right now, all girls, they're just screaming and yelling and, oh, you're going to die, you're going to die. But it gets their interest. They're going to remember that for the rest of their lives.
Okay, right here, come on, come on.
Oh my gosh. She's having a good time.
Aren't you supposed to have the goggles on your head?
Yeah, the goggles.
Oh my goodness. John, give Murata a ball.
And we have to use different strategies now. We have to remember that for too many kids, too many students, their attention span might be measured in nanoseconds. So always doing something different. And I'm in physics as opposed to other subjects. You can actually get these kids doing something, whether that's doing the class experiment with just pulleys, lifting up the weight with multiple pulleys or whatever, getting them to actually do it as opposed to just sitting there, because I learned more actually doing things with my hands and applying the principle physics to that, as opposed to just somebody just drawing a picture on the board and this is how it works.
Yeah, and I'm definitely a learner like that too. I think I'll never forget my high school physics teacher, Mr. Miller. Oh, he was like a rebel. He was a revolutionary rebel. He had his own little radio station. He had his own little he had his own little private radio station. He wouldn't tell you about till you became a high school graduate. He would tell you his channel because he was like, "No, I can't tell you now. You go wait till you graduate." Then he would tell you the channel. He said, "Don't tell anybody." Like you can't tell any of the younger kids, right? Has to be like their rites of passage, right? And he was talking about education and trying to get more money for education. He was a really cool guy. But I remember he had this activity where you sat in this chair and there's a bike tire,
Oh yeah,
a wheel of a bike.
angular
And
momentum.
see, I wasn't
Yeah.
even going to claim to even have a title for it. So thank you for that. I'm going to go to the basic description. I'm going to go with the basic description. And so he would spin it, and then you would like he say, okay, now turn it, like start turning it, and
Right.
you would start rotating, and like those are things that I think so many kids need. Like I'll never forget. I didn't know the name. I mean, I probably could have looked it up, but I didn't know what it was called. But I'll never forget what the feeling of it. Like, oh my god, this little wheel. I mean, not a wheel. It was a tire, but it
Bicycle
was
tire, right?
a bicycle tire. It was moving me, and I've been a big kid my whole life, So anything that can move me without like some serious force was like, what's going on here? And so I think like how many kids can can we find teachers who are excited about their own teaching
Yeah.
to get kids excited about learning, that it looks very different than it did when I was in high school. Like it has to look different. And I told my students when I became a teacher, I'm not gonna. First of all, I don't have enough energy to be running around, jumping and making, trying to like match energy from your cartoons. Like I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
But I am gonna do my best to engage you in things that are gonna be real life, real world, and real experiences. And I think that that's a part of the work that is so kind of undervalued sometimes, right? It's like, how do we get their attention? What is the thing that's going to get your attention? And what's going to get one kid's attention? The other kid is going to be like, that's so dumb. Why I want to sit in a chair and spin around in a chair? So one thing is going to get one kid excited. It won't be the same for the other, but at least it gives a opportunity for connection, And I think we've been talking a lot about this education thing, and I think which is really important. But I want to, as we kind of wind down the time, I want to just ask you, what do you envision? Schools. How long have you been a teacher? What was your first year teaching? Do you remember?
Yeah. 1981
81.
was the first year I taught.
And you've seen lots of transitions in education.
Well, it's always the next best thing coming in. And right now it's, Google Classroom or whatever. But nothing is going to really replace, in physics, in my discipline, a teacher coming in and engaging these students and, explaining or giving them an opportunity to actually experience the pulleys or the levers. And those labs go back to, Archimedes. Same thing, but it's a principle a lot of these kids don't understand, and by actually doing it, they'll understand it. Uh, why is a car radiator black as opposed to silver or red or whatever? Well, it has to do with black body radiation, and I'm not going to bore you with the details, but black will absorb heat faster than, let's say, white from the car engine, but it'll also lose heat faster. So, making that real to these students, getting them real life experiences. Everyone's going to have a car. Why is the radiator black? Well, I can tell you now. Okay, not only can I tell you, but I did that in Dr. Daponte's class.
That's it. I guess as a teacher now, and one of the things that maybe in this, as we think about where education is, and I think that's really powerful about physics, I think as well, like the Google Classrooms, the Zoom classrooms, all the things we had to do to make learning happen. And
during COVID, yes.
Yeah. I imagine even for like, how did you do that? How did you do the pandemic teaching? Did you know?
I was actually at the juvenile detention center at that time.
Yeah.
And we actually went in during COVID. And that was an experience too. But when the vaccines first came out, county employees were at the top of the list. I think we got them before anybody else in the world, perhaps. But I think we're still seeing the effects of that too.
Yeah.
You just can't. The students just aren't going to learn as much watching me on the screen as opposed to actually doing something.
Yeah.
Engaging them. I'd love to sit down with you across the table, Ashanti, but we're halfway across the country.
Yeah.
But this is this is how we can connect right now, and I think having a direct connection with the students, that's important too, because so many of our students, especially in the inner city, this teacher might be the only stable person they see every day.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you found, I guess as we think about our mask, you and I shared our masks here publicly, but when we come to a school, students, they have their mask on, right? And so, and we talk about masks as being not anything wrong with being having a mask. It's just, do you have a place to take it off? Do you have a place to talk about those things that you may not regularly let people see, but that could help you benefit, take some of that steam off, right? I think as we talked about at the beginning of the show, like how many young people, especially you're in all girls school now, but I would say like when you worked with
Yeah.
more co-ed audiences or more at the juvenile detention center, um, like how have you seen those masks show up in the classroom? Like just if you think about the metaphor, how have you seen it show up, and maybe what were ways that you found ways of helping students to like let you in a little bit to be able to help teach them? Because some students are not going to learn from you unless they can have a connection with you, and some kids will do the work even if you don't show up.
Yeah. Uh, I think it's important that the teacher in my class, the we will break up for labs every day, every other day, and I'll circulate between groups and just saying, "Hey, how's it going? What are you doing? Do you understand this?" Um, showing some interest in what the kid is doing,
Yeah,
and I think having that connection, students are much more apt to come to you with their masks off. Uh, sometimes when they do take the masks off, it is not a pleasant experience that they want to share with you, but it's a cry for help. And from there, um, we are in many cases legally bound to refer them to the social workers or the administration or law enforcement too. Uh,
yeah,
you know, I've had a few students, who were comfortable enough with me to share that they were being abused sexually, and red flags go off immediately. And we are in the state of Texas. I'm sure the same in California. If a student tells you that, you are legally bound to document it and refer it to social workers, children's protective services, law enforcement, whatever.
yeah, yeah. The mandated reporters; those are them. It really, it's an important responsibility, and sometimes those spaces are the kids need to have to talk about those things in a deep way. There's something, a thought was coming to my mind, like as you becoming an educator, as went to the army and found out like you were good at school, and then you decided I'm gonna take some classes and I'm gonna keep going. Was there a teacher who, like, in maybe K-12 before you got to the army and you were taking those classes? Was there a
Yeah.
teacher that you remember that really stood out to you
Oh
for?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Sala, Robert
Mm,
Sala, the biology teacher at
mm,
Stratford High School, and he had only been teaching a few years, so he was younger than some of the other teachers, but he actively engaged with the students, and uh, we did, I don't know how many labs. Let's go look at a tree or something like that. Let's go collect soil samples. Well, you dig up, by the baseball field or something like that, the PE field, doing soil samples. And he really uh, inspired me in a sense that,
mm,
okay, it's okay to go beyond the book. Uh, because biology can be really boring. The Krebs cycle is just, oh my goodness. You don't want to bring that up in a cocktail party. But actually, he was actually able to motivate many of us in high school. So he was the teacher who stands out.
nice.
In fact, geez, it was about 20 years after I graduated from high school. I went back to the high school and my hometown. I was visiting my mother, and I said, I'm going to go see Mr. Sala. School's in session. So, and I went there and I thanked him for what he did or how he taught.
I imagine he
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine he was really appreciating that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And if he's ever watching this, Robert Sala, thank you.
Yeah. I think all the teachers out there who are helping kids navigate the world in ways that they may not be able to do on their own. Tim, as we close up, is there any last words you want to say about this mask experience? How was this for you? This is your first time on a podcast, but also, you were asked to, we,
It
I'm,
took me a while, Ashanti. It really did. Not the front of the mask. Okay, I'm happy, educated. I'm a teacher, but the back of the mask. 3 words that you don't necessarily share with people. Insecure. Yeah. Um, Family issues. My younger son, the reason he wasn't able to come to India is because he has special needs. He's 22. He's nonverbal, and that's something I'm not ashamed of it, of course, but it's something that we deal with every day, uh, and past trauma too. The thing is, I don't think I'm unique in that.
thank you for those words. And what I'm hoping is that in this conversation, that more men out there in the world will realize that you're not alone. I mean, I think you are unique. I think, but we're maybe behind the mask stuff, we're not unique in the things that we've been
Right.
through. It, and I think it would help us if we knew that there were other men in our community. If you're a man, if you're a woman, like there are other people in your community who are probably going through things you're going through, but we've been maybe taught or trained that no one wants to hear it. So therefore, we bottle it up, we stuff it, we repress it, and hopefully we can keep going while we're repressing all of these things that are happening. And what we know is that some people can't. And the conversation has been around making space for people all over the world to realize they're not alone. So I want to thank you for sharing some of your masks with us today. And as the students that you work with, as you get ready for next school year, are you on summer break yet? Or are you getting close?
Actually, Friday's our last day here. So,
You almost forgot. That's like 2 days away.
No,
That's
for
tomorrow.
Friday's mañana.
Well, it's tomorrow. See?
Right.
Oh, man,
Well, you're in a time warp, Ashanti.
I feel like it sometimes. I
Right.
tell you for sure.
Right.
Well, have a great summer break, and maybe next year, as your school comes back, maybe the mask movement is something that could benefit teachers and students in those spaces, right? To recognize I'm not alone. Like I'm going through stuff.
We
Yeah.
have a teacher. I referred a teacher here at Incarnate Word to you.
Great.
And a lot of this deals with men, but I think women, it also applies to.
Absolutely. Oh, we make masks with everyone. So absolutely, we have masks that are from everyone and from all over the world. So I look forward to that. And I just want to say thank you for being on the show. It is so
Oh.
good. I almost how did I forget that we had Zoom. We could have seen each other a long time ago, but I've not seen you in so long. But such a
Oh,
pleasure.
love you, Ashanti.
Love you too, brother. Hey Tim, as we close up, is there any way you would like people that if they want to follow up with you, would you have a way of them contacting you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Tim Daponte,
All right.
and that'd probably be the easiest way to do that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the personal email, we might not want to share that with.
No worries. We'll just do
everyone.
LinkedIn.
Okay.
We'll just put the link for the LinkedIn.
Yeah,
That'd be
just the
perfect.
LinkedIn. Okay.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And folks, if you want to make a mask out there, Tim and I shared our mask publicly, but you can do it also anonymously at millionmask.org. We are appreciating you for being a part. Please, if you found this episode inspiring, maybe there's a teacher who needs to hear some of these words from these two teachers talking about their own masks. Maybe you can share this episode with them. You can review us on Apple Podcasts. And we look forward to you being a part of the next episode. So thank you so much. And we'll see you soon, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
I love you, Ashanti.
Love you too, brother.
High Tech High Unboxed is written and edited by me, Alec Patton. Our theme music is by Brother Herschel. You can find Taking Off the Mask wherever you get your podcasts. We've also included a link to Ashanti Branch's Ever Forward Club in the show notes. Thanks for listening.